Body Shop Warrior. Today I'm going to go through 13 essential tools for the new mechanic to keep that car running, and one tip to make those oil changes a lot faster, save you some time. Alright, let's get into it. Before we get into the tools, let's get into that tip on how to save you some time when you're doing an oil change. I find this to be very effective. Alright, so what I do is I write the name of my vehicle, I write how many quarts of oil that vehicle holds, and I write the size of the oil plug. Writing down this information saves me a lot of time because I can't ever remember how many quarts of oil my engine takes, so I go look in the owner's manual. Inevitably, I'll grab the wrong size of socket and have to come back and forth 2 or 3 times. Save yourself that time by writing down that information on this. Well, let's talk about some of the essential things that I think new mechanics should be able to do, right? So maybe you just got a new car, you're wanting to get into just doing it yourself, saving a little bit of money. There's a few essential things you can do. Number 1, the oil change. So I've got some tools related to that. Number 2, another great thing that kind of gets you in the engine a little bit is changing your spark plugs. Number 3, checking the pressure in your tires. That's something you should be doing every month. And number 4, the brakes. A little more complicated, a little bit of specialty tools, we won't get into that, related to that. But that's also something you could do that can save you quite a bit of money. Well, let's talk about the oil change. What do you need for that? So the first thing, which I don't have here, which I think is essential, and I'll put a picture of it here, is a plastic pan to catch the oil and also hold it. A very, very handy thing to do. It's definitely better than having like a big open container or something to catch it and trying to pour it into something. So I highly recommend it. Once you drain the oil, you fill this thing up. I can usually get 3, 4, 5 oil changes in this container, and then you take it to your local auto parts store, and most of them now have a oil recycling, which basically is like a giant metal box in the back. You just walk back there, dump in your oil, and you're good to go. Second thing is one of these guys. You don't want to spill oil all over your car. Get you one of these, they're cheap. Pick up 2 or 3. Good to have different sizes for all the different fluids in your car anyways, right? Your windshield wiper fluid or brake fluid or oil change. So get 2 or 3 of these, different sizes, different lengths, handy to have. Next item is the kind of optional, essential if you need it. So let me explain that a little bit. Let me grab, so I usually get like a 4 or 5 pack of these for my wife's car. These are too small for these to really be effective. So that's why I say it depends. This is essential if you have the big oil filters. The diameter for my cars is actually pretty small, so I don't find these very handy. It's also very accessible by hand. I can reach it very, very easily, so it's really not essential. But if you have a bigger oil filter, these can be handy. There's a couple different ways, different methods that these work. I don't really like this one. They also make the ones that are sort of look like a cap that goes on here that you connect to a ratchet. I don't find those work very well either. Of the 3 that I have ever tried, I like this one the best. It's just kind of spring-loaded. So again, if you have big diameter oil filters, this is an essential tool, but it kind of depends on the size of your filter. Another great thing you can do is change the spark plugs. And there's a special socket for that. And each car has a different size, so you'll just need to determine what that is. And you can go buy these individually. The only difference is it's got a little rubber piece in there that is exactly the same size as the head of the spark plug. Another really essential thing is a headlamp. It's like having a third arm. So definitely recommend picking up one of these. I use this pretty much every time I work on the car because inevitably it takes longer than I think it's going to, and it starts getting dark and I have to finish the job in the dark. So get you a headlamp. Another thing that you definitely need, a ratchet and some sockets. This is Craftsman. They have a lifetime warranty. I like them. I got these from my dad, and they've lasted me for a very, very long time. So I would invest in a good set. You don't necessarily have to go out and get the 200-piece socket set. You can simply start with a ratchet and the size of sockets that you need. Add to it from there. That's a great way to go about it. But if you want to get the 100-piece set, knock yourself out. Alright, also need a set of wrenches. Again, I kind of take the same approach. You can buy the whole set, or you can just buy what you need in that moment for whatever you're fixing, and go with that. Another thing I really like, which keeps my hands clean, are these gloves. You can get different thicknesses. I don't know what mill this is, but these latex gloves, really nice. If you remember to put them on before you start, which half the time I don't, I'm halfway into, my hands are already dirty. And then I remember I have these gloves. Another essential tool to keep that tire pressure where it's supposed to be, tire pressure gauge. These electronic ones, they're okay. They're fast, they work pretty good. A couple more tools. They're super handy. Now, I guess I should have mentioned this with the oil change. A lot of these cars, they have that plastic cover underneath the engine, and you have to pop that off to get to the oil plug. So this little puller tool is very handy. I used to just use a screwdriver, but this is definitely will make the job much faster. So this just pops off those little plastic rivet things that hold that plastic cover on. They're used, not just there, but kind of all throughout these new cars. So definitely get yourself one of these. Another thing I find really handy is, and I think this was a 3-pack set, these little plastic tools that are good for prying. I use this, or I bought these for taking the inside door panel off of my wife's car to fix the door lock. And when you're prying off that plastic stuff, you don't want to scratch it with a screwdriver. So that's where these things can be really handy. The other thing that I said, which I think a new mechanic should get into besides the oil and spark plugs and maintaining your tires, is changing the brakes. So generally your socket set, you're going to need that, and you're going to need a good tire iron. So this one has 4 different, each end is a different size. I definitely recommend this. It makes getting those lug nuts way easier than the one that comes in the car to change the tire. Don't use that. Get yourself one of these. Trust me, it's worth it. You get a lot more leverage because of the size of this thing. You get a lot more leverage than those little things that typically come in the cars. So this will make much easier work getting those lug nuts off. Another essential thing for changing the brakes is this brake tool. Slip this over here. Now you can rent these from your local auto parts store, but if you feel like you're going to be changing the brakes more than a couple times, I would just get this. I think it's worth buying and having it yourself. So just a little set, and this comes with all these different adapters that will work on basically every car. And what it does is it just compresses that caliper. When you change out the brake pads, right, you're wearing out the pads and you're pushing up against it, right? So when you pull out the pads, that piston, that caliper is going to be stuck out. So you have to wind it back in. And the way to do that is this. And trust me, no, you cannot do it with clamps or vice grips, or I've tried every combination of kind of your standard tools that I can imagine, and it is not a replacement for this. So I definitely recommend picking up this set. It's only, I don't know, I want to say 25 or 30 bucks, but definitely worth having if you're going to be changing your own brakes. If you're interested in knowing all the essential tools that I keep in my tool bag, I did another video on that. I'll put a link to that up top so you can check that out. So I just wanted to cover the essential tools for the mechanic in this video, but if you want to know the other tools that I consider essential, be sure and check that out. All right, I hope you found that helpful. If you're a new mechanic, these are some great tools to get you started doing those basic essential things to keep your car running. All right, thanks everybody.